Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and it's the 15th of September 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into this special episode of the Refuel, which is basically going to be completely focused on the merge, because the merge has happened. It is no longer coming, it is no longer in the future, it is here, and it went through so smoothly. It was actually amazing. So a lot of you would have watched the live stream that I was on with a ton of people on there that was hosted by myself, ETHstaker, Bankless, and the Ethereum Cat Herders. It was a really well-run stream, I thought. The coordination was great, and then we all got to watch the merge happen live. Now, the merge, for those of you watching and those of you who have seen, happened so smoothly that it actually, I think, surprised some of the core devs and researchers with how smooth it went. And you guys know I've been talking about things to look for with when we do merges. We've done lots of testnets and shadow forks and stuff like that. Well, the top two things we want to look for is participation rate across the network, which I believe dropped by only 2% or something like that, maybe 2 or 3%. So really not a big drop at all, basically negligible. And we also finalized in the first epoch, and with like a very high participation of I think 97, 98%, which is just crazy. So the merge went through as good as it could have gone. I think there was some configuration issues or some little issues with some clients. I think one or two clients had some issues that were easily resolved, but the network as a whole merged extremely successfully. The blocks kept getting proposed, people got their transactions in, and the hilarious thing is that like all the culmination of the countless hours and years worth of work to get to this point, really at the end of the day, the merge just happened. Like it was a smooth transition. Users didn't feel anything different, and they weren't impacted by anything. There was no outages, nothing like that. And the chain has continued kicking on since. So, I mean, a monumental and historic day for every single person in the Ethereum community. I think, I'm going to remember this day for the rest of my life. Honestly, it is one of the happiest in my life. I waited 5.5 years for this since I first got into Ethereum, because proof of stake has been at pretty much the top of my list of what I've been most excited about in Ethereum. And now the network is just on proof of stake forever, which is incredible. I can't believe I'm saying that, right? Like it actually happened. Like there's no more, it's coming, it's here now. So obviously a very exciting day for the core devs and researchers as well, all the people that worked on it, the hundreds of people that worked directly on getting this to mainnet. They are going to take a well-deserved break, I believe, over the next 4 to 5 weeks, in between Berlin conferences and events and Bogota in Colombia. They're going to be enjoying the festivities there, and I'm sure they're going to be throwing a ton of parties and just kind of enjoying this monumental achievement that they were able to produce. So if you want to check out, I guess, some more stuff around what happened around the Beacon Chain, I guess like around the merge, you can go to the Beacon Chain website, which I've talked about a lot before. They've got this nice visualization up here, but you can see that participation rates are still like not at what they were pre-merge. So pre-merge was about 99.5%. Currently it's at 98.3%. So really a negligible drop-off. It really doesn't matter at all. But I expect that to see that go back up to 99+% easily, up to 99.5% once all those offline validators get themselves worked out, which shouldn't take very long. And my validators, I actually checked on them after the stream. I was like, okay, they're safe. They made it through the merge because they're in another room. So I went and checked. I'm like, oh, that's nice. They all worked perfectly. It actually didn't require anything else from me to do. I had already gotten them all merge ready a little while ago, so that was nice to see. But yeah, you can go visit the Beacon Chain website for an explorer here and explore around. There's also an update here from Etherscan. So now that on Etherscan, mainnet blocks have now updated with proof of stake details. So they've got finalization status, proposed slot and epoch, fee recipient, and consensus information tab as well. So great to see Etherscan being on the ball as usual with these sorts of things. And you can go check out that on Etherscan itself. You can check out the screenshots, but also go to Etherscan and you can see those new features there. And speaking of that live stream, you can, I guess, go back and watch it now on YouTube. We actually had an insane amount of viewers. I think it peaked at over 40,000 viewers at one point, and it's got over 200,000 views on the video itself, which is just crazy. I believe it's the most viewed live stream in Ethereum history. Vitalik's tweet about the merge is, I think, the most liked and retweeted tweet in Ethereum's history. I don't know if I've got it up here. I've got a couple of his other tweets, but not the one where he spoke about the merge itself. So obviously the world was watching. There were a lot of eyes on the merge, and I think that over the next few weeks and months, we're going to get people digesting it. There's going to be tons of reporters talking about it, especially that energy reduction, which is definitely the thing that's most interesting to people outside of crypto. That's all going to play out as time goes on. And it's funny because I'm seeing some comments on Twitter being like, "Oh my God, ETH didn't immediately pump after the merge. It's a scam. It was all priced in." It's like why would you expect it to immediately go up in price? Like the market stuff is mostly irrelevant, but I think people often get the wrong idea about these sorts of things. Like we have removed that sell pressure, right? We have removed that execution risk. The merge is done, but it doesn't mean that immediately as soon as the merge happened, ETH was just going to gigapump, especially in a wider bear market. Like this is not a bull market. This is not 2021. This is 2022, which has been so far been a bear market the entire year. So I'm actually really happy about that. I'm actually happy that the price has just gone sideways because at the end of the day, like it's better to not have extreme volatility around these events because they're not sustainable. If it's just extreme volatility to the upside because of some hyped up event, it's generally not sustainable, and more people get burnt that way, and it just becomes, really annoying. So I'm very glad that we merged in a bear market. I'm very glad that the market isn't reacting in a stupid way to this sorts of stuff, and we'll see over the next few months if our thesis around that massive issue introduction playing out will be correct. And I mean, Hal Press has said the same thing. He said that it's not going to play out instantly. It's going to take weeks and months for it to play out. So, wait a few months and then tell us that we were wrong, or say that, haha, the Ethereans don't know what they were talking about. It didn't actually mean anything. Because I really do think that that's not true. I think that it's definitely going to mean a lot, but it's going to take a little bit to play out. But that's all I'm going to say about the market side of things. As I said, definitely go rewatch the live stream if you haven't yet for a fun stream. We had people talking about all things proof of stake on the stream as well. We got to watch it live, so you can go do that there. And there was actually a quote on the stream from Justin Drake, which blew my mind, where he said, "The merge will reduce worldwide electricity consumption by 0.2%. That's how much that was estimated that the Ethereum proof of work chain was using. Now, you guys know that the energy reduction with proof of stake is obviously one of the biggest things that Ethereans have promoted over the years, and it's one of the main reasons of moving to proof of stake. I personally am just neutral in this regard, but I still think this is a crazy number. It really is crazy that these networks can use so much electricity, and I think the debate is less around the electricity use and more about the efficiency of that use. Like, do you think that it's worth Ethereum or Bitcoin using this much electricity for the value that they're providing the world as it exists today? I don't think so. I don't think Ethereum provides enough value to justify that. I don't think Bitcoin provides enough value to justify that usage. And the thing with proof of work is that it scales up. Right? So if the bigger these networks got, the bigger proof of work network gets, the more electricity that it consumes. So it's not really a linear relationship, right? In terms of the value that it creates. So yeah, I mean, for me, proof of stake has always been a better bang for your buck system in terms of security, in terms of the value that obviously Ethereum brings to the world. And now it doesn't have to worry about this at all. We literally do not have to worry about people calling Ethereum wasteful because of the fact that we are not literally wasteful because we're on proof of stake. We don't waste energy like proof of work does, or we don't use as much energy as proof of work does. But again, as I said, I'm rather neutral on this. It's fine that Bitcoin is on proof of work and continues that way. It remains to be seen how sustainable that is long term. I obviously have my thoughts around this, especially around their security budget and their long-term security prospects. And I also have my thoughts around the, I guess, like the not non-existent, but like the much worse bang for your buck that you get under proof of work. But I'm not going to rehash that here. I just think that was an insane stat that Justin Drake brought up. Vitalik also pointed out that one important corollary of this, this being blocks being smoother, obviously in a post-merge world because they're deterministic at 12 seconds instead of probabilistic at around 13 seconds, is better EIP1559 performance because fewer blocks bump up against the 2x limit. So far, the percentage of full blocks has dropped from 20% to 10%. So you can actually see this in Martin Koppelman's chart here that he posted to Twitter, and the little spike that you see after the straight line is just a missed block. So obviously there's going to be some missed blocks in proof of stake Ethereum. It doesn't really matter because it doesn't mean that your transactions aren't going to get included. You just have to wait for the next block for them to be included if you're missed there. Another validator will pick it up. But essentially it's always smooth because it is deterministic at 12 seconds. There is no probabilistic nature of it where it is with proof of work, where blocks can take longer than 13 seconds or be shorter than 13 seconds. It is always going to be 12 seconds from now on, which is very, very cool. And they're actually called slots in Ethereum because they are blocks, but there is more going on inside the block than just what was, going on in proof of work. There's obviously the attestations and things like that as well. But I guess that's orthogonal to this itself. So cool to see another big benefit of EIP 1559, as Vitalik pointed out. That's just the gift that keeps on giving, I think, with 1559. And it's funny because I think, is it one of my tweets here? Yeah. So speaking of EIP 1559, on the ultrasound.money website now, you can actually see a metric called supply change since merge. And you can see here that the supply change, because we were over 15 Gwei, which is the current ultrasound barrier, we actually got to minus 139.3 ETH at time of recording. Now you can see here that chart I showed the other day. We're not above the ultrasound barrier right now, so we're not deflationary right now, but it's more of an average over time. So we'll see how that plays out, obviously, over the months and years, because you can literally... So the funny thing about this is that for 3 months of the year, you can be below the ultrasound barrier, but then you only need to be above it for 3 months of the year at 15. You only need to be at 15 Gwei for 3 months of the year to make up for that. But also, like, during times of higher volatility, we can have persistent 50, 100 Gwei gas prices, which will make up for it on an average. If you average it out over a year, it makes up for the less deflationary periods or the non-deflationary periods, because averaged out, it's obviously really beneficial. So I think that looking at the day-to-day or the week-to-week deflationary properties of Ether don't really make any sense. Doesn't really make any sense. Obviously, it makes sense to look at month-to-month and definitely year-to-year to see how it plays out. Because if you saw it here by like the last 30 days, right, and then you simulate merge, you can actually where is it? It's up. I think it's up the top here. You can actually see that if you simulate merge here over the last 30 days. I think supply growth was 0.1%, right? So it was basically almost neutral. And then you go all, it was minus 1.5%, because that's accounting for everything since 1559 was implemented. So still net deflationary from that point, which I think is very cool. So yeah, cool to see that there. I think they're going to get rid of the simulate merge button soon, because obviously we don't need that anymore because we're on proof of stake. We're never going back to proof of work. So I'm excited to see that be, I guess, adjusted there. But cool to see this little metric that they've installed here. So Xiaowei Wang from the Ethereum Foundation has put together a thread. This was before the merge went live, about how we got to the merge, basically. And this is a recap thread on all the ETH research posts, starting all the way back in October of 2019, where Vitalik published the ETH1 to ETH2 transition on ETH research, which introduced how to reuse the ETH1 voting mechanism to feed the ETH1 state root into ETH2. So basically, this was what became known as the merge. This was like really early on in the process, but then it evolved over time, and you can read this whole thread. I'm not going to rehash it here, but you can read this whole thread and how it evolved over time and how we came to what became the merge, which was basically, I think, in November 2020. Yeah, November 2020, I think, was when the ETH1 to ETH2 merger came much more into view. And then since then, there was a couple more things on the research side, but really it was the specs, the testing, the interoperability, the releases, the test nets, the shadow forks, and all the rest of it to get to where we were today. So you can go give Xiaowei's thread a read. I thought it was very, very interesting just to take a trip down memory lane, because obviously I had been a part of that and been monitoring it, but I had forgotten some of these things. So maybe if you haven't been around since 2019, you'd want to learn the history here. So this is a great thread to check out. And speaking of the history, Ryan Sean Adams from Bankless here replied to Raul Jordan's tweet about basically meeting his co-founder, Preston Van Loon here, 4 years ago to develop Proof of Stake Ethereum, to develop the Prism client for Proof of Stake Ethereum. So Ryan said, I remember I thought, quote unquote, ETH2 would never ship. Then Prismatic Labs stepped up and said, we're doing this, no funding guarantees. You guys just started building. It was such a confidence boost to the ETH community during a difficult time. Sincerely, thank you. Wouldn't be here without you. Now, as I said before, if you weren't around in those days of like 2019 especially, you probably don't realize just how dark it was in terms of aimless kind of, we're going to move to proof of stake, we're going to do this ETH2 thing, but there really wasn't a solid plan. And that plan really did come come together pretty early on. I think even in 2018 it started coming together through to 2019, and then 2020 it really ramped up, especially obviously as we launched the Beacon chain on December 1st, 2020. So that all kind of came together. But during those dark days, these people basically volunteered their time. There was no guarantee of funding. There was no guarantee that this thing would succeed, that it would ever get to mainnet. There was just, as Ryan said, building. Like, these people came and built something that they have believed would work, that they believed is greater than themselves, and they wanted to be part of a movement. And I remember back in 2019, funding was so dire that Vitalik himself basically YOLO airdropped 1,000 ETH to these various groups, and not just Prylabs, but I believe pretty much all the consensus layer client teams at the time got about 1,000 ETH, which I believe that was happening when ETH was about $100. So it was 100 grand, right? And this is how tight funding was. So he did that, and he gave the money to them, and that obviously helped a lot. And then obviously the ETH price went up, so that was worth more for them, and they did other things. Like, I know some of them, like Sigma Prime, for example, who develops the Lighthouse client, they also do audits, security audits and things like that. So they branched out, and it seems they've got like a lot of funding now. The Ethereum Foundation obviously helps them a lot too, but that's not an issue anymore. But as I said, it wasn't just the funding side of things. It really was the fact that there was no guarantee of success here. This was literally like building something that was brand new. I mean, just there was the vague notion of ETH2, the vague notion of proof of stake. Like, obviously there were specs that Vitalik had done, but there was no guarantee that it would work. There was no guarantee that anyone would care. And imagine how these guys feel. Like, not just these two guys from Prylabs, but like all of the people that work directly on the development / engineering and research side. Imagine how they feel with the merge going forward. Like, me, myself, like, obviously I'm ecstatic about it. I'm really happy about it, but I'm not a dev. I'm not a researcher. I'm just an educator and kind of, I guess, like a quote unquote influencer, right? I'm not on the level of these rock stars, so I can only imagine how they felt seeing this go through, and the years worth of tireless work that they've put into it just really warms my heart. And I think the result of this isn't just the fact that there's that execution risk kind of like going to zero of the merge, because obviously it's done now, but it's also such a boon to the wider community, because what it does is it shows that we can ship really complex and hard upgrades to the network and do it in a way that is actually safe and smooth. Like, I don't think people realize just how complex this thing was. As I mentioned at the start of this episode, it felt smooth, but it required so much work to get to that point of feeling smooth. And that's the thing with these kind of upgrades, is that all the work will go into it, but the people that actually use the network, most of them will have no idea about that. And that's totally fine. That's obviously what these people sign up for. They know that their work is not going to be, I guess, like appreciated to the fullest by most of the people that use it. But that's fine. Like, I don't think they need that validation. But I'm definitely going to give them that validation, because I know how hard it was, and I know a lot of you guys do as well. And it basically reinforces the fact that we are building something that can work, that can ship, that can actually deliver value to people. So all the other coming upgrades after the merge, as I outlined in this tweet here, the Surge, the Verge, the Purge, the Splurge, right? They're all coming. They're all being built. There is more confidence in the Ethereum ecosystem than there ever has been. And these are happening in parallel as well. Like, Ethereum has never been in a better place than it is today. It really just is amazing how far we've come in 3 years, guys. I mean, 2019 was not a long time ago. Like, we're in September 2019. September 2022. September 2019 was an extremely dark time for Ethereum. One of the darkest. I think the darkest was probably the end of 2019, but September was just as dark. And in 3 years, we have completely turned that around to Ethereum being in the best position it's ever been, the future of Ethereum being brighter than it has ever been, and Ethereum's reputation as Ethereum being this credibly neutral settlement layer that we want it to be is just becoming more into view. Like, we see it. We just need to build towards it. We just need to get this stuff shipped. Because as I've said, we're only about halfway through the Ethereum roadmap, but we'll get there. And I'm more confident than ever that we'll get there. I have no doubts now, honestly. Like, even pre-merge, I didn't really have any doubts, but I think it's basically at this point in time impossible to say that Ethereum is not going to continue to execute on its roadmap when it just delivered the hardest part of its roadmap. There is some debate about that, actually. Some people have said to me, well, you know, this part's actually harder than the merge to do, this part being potentially dank sharding. But I don't know if I agree with that, because while dank sharding is still an open research problem, the thing about it is that, like, it in my mind, it's not as complex, or it doesn't require as much coordination and it's not as critical as the merge. Like, I think we can get away with proto-dank sharding for a very long time, for example. So from that lens, I don't actually think it's more complicated, but that's a debate for another time. But yeah, I mean, all in all, the future of Ethereum has literally never looked brighter. I mean, I honestly can't think of a period in time, in my time in Ethereum, where I felt more confident, happier with the direction that Ethereum is going, and more excited for the future. Now, what am I going to talk about for the future? Well, everything that I've listed here. Obviously, I'll still keep updating you guys on stuff happening at the application layer and layer 2s and all that good stuff there. But the merge conversation is pretty much over at this point. I think maybe over the next few days, I may talk about the merge a little bit more just as we get more recaps and more threads and blog posts about it. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of those. But after that, I mean, that's it. We're on proof of stake, and there are upgrades coming to proof of stake Ethereum, but it's not going to be anything like the merge. But we have the surge to look forward to. I think we'll be in, obviously 6 to 12 months after the merge with the Shanghai update, beacon chain withdrawals, all that good stuff there, and just everything around it. Like, there is so much still to talk about, guys. Like, the reason why I dedicated this episode to only the merge is because I felt it was relevant and prudent just to do a whole episode on the merge. But funny enough, there was actually some other things that happened today, and I'm actually going to talk about one of them at the end of the episode to close us out. But yeah, I mean, the building never stops, the Ethereum train never stops, and we have just kind of like upgraded ourselves. We basically put jetpacks on the Ethereum train now. So I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I'm more excited than I've ever been. But I'm going to leave that one at that for now. Last two things about the merge. So we had the first mev-boost block that was mined. So mev-boost was activated a few epochs into the merge, and it seems to be going all well and good. There is a bunch of relayers, as I mentioned before, that are being used. So it's not just Flashbots' relayer that it's being used. There's a bunch of them out there. I think there's 5. So there's Flashbots, there's BlocksRoute, there's Manifold, there's Dreamboat from Block Native, there's and then there's also, I believe, Eden is doing a relay as well. So you can basically choose which one you want from them, which is very cool. But yeah, mev-boost seems to be working. So if you're running a solo validator, or if you're running a rocket pool validator as well, you can kind of upgrade your node, or at least kind of attach mev-boost to it as like this sidecar to make sure, or upgrade your validator, I should say, to make sure you're capturing that MEV revenue there. All right, finally, bordel.wtf. It's a website that we were all refreshing frantically and monitoring frantically in the lead up to the merge. Well, Mario Havel here, the, I guess, developer or owner of bordel.wtf, gave some stats. So it was refreshed over 13 million times from midnight UTC till the merge. That was about 6 hours. So refreshed over 13 million times from 7 million unique IP addresses in 6 hours before the merge, with 130,000 unique user agents. Bit of a DDoS at the end. It did go down at the end, and he apologized if they couldn't reach it before the merge. But thank you for using Bordel, and happy merge, everyone. This was my source of truth. Eventually, Bordel and that 797.io website came to the same consensus on when TTD would be reached, around 6:41 or 6:42 a.m. UTC, and it happened around then. And also, we had most of the hash rate still just stick with it till the merge actually happened. I believe the hash rate was still around 750 or 800 terahashes. I believe it peaked at 1.1 petahashes, so it didn't come down that much. And around the merge, it was going down, but then it was going back up. So it seemed like the miners were like, well, I'm going to shut them down anyway, or I'm going to move to a really unprofitable coin anyway, so I may as well just keep mining till the merge. And the way TTD worked is that it didn't really matter if we lost a lot of hash rate, it would still get hit, and it wouldn't be that much of a delay, maybe a few hours later. But yeah, the timing actually sucked for most of the world. I think it ended up happening early morning Europe time, which wasn't that bad, but it really did suck for US and Canada and South America as well, because it ended up happening very late at night for them. But I'm sure if they stayed up for it, they knew it was worth it to do that, because at the end of the day, the merge is worth staying up for. I mean, I would have done it. It happened at the perfect time for me. I mean, it was like, actually, I can't remember the exact time because I was too distracted by the merge, but it was like 3 or 4 p.m. or something like that, my time. So it worked perfectly for me. And I've still got all my energy now. I'm recording this at 9:30 p.m. My time. And I've actually got at 11 p.m. a post-merge live stream that I'm doing with David Hoffman on Bankless, with DC Investor and Superfizz. So you should definitely go watch that after you've done with the refuel. Maybe you've already watched it, because the refuel obviously goes out later than 11 p.m. I'm quoting Australian Eastern Standard Time right now, not UTC. But yeah, I think that's everything on the merge recap. As I said, there's one other thing I'm going to talk about. But before I move on to that, I just wanted to, again, say to any Ethereum, I guess, core developers or researchers that watch or listen to the Refuel, thank you so much for all of your work over the years. Obviously, the work doesn't end here. You're going to keep doing the amazing work that you've been doing. But from the bottom of my heart, really, thank you. It is a huge, monumental achievement that we've all achieved as a community today. But you guys, being the developers and researchers especially, without you, this would not have happened. So I'm sure you're all celebrating. But if you are listening to the Refuel, thank you for that as well. I appreciate that. But yeah, that's going to be everything on the merge. Moving on to the last thing I wanted to talk about was this tweet thread from Brian Armstrong, obviously the Coinbase CEO here, saying that starting today, Coinbase will begin integrating their crypto policy efforts right into their app. These will help our 103 million verified users get educated on the crypto positions held by political leaders where they live. So this is obviously for the US politicians only. I don't think they're doing it for any other country right now. But I think this is really important because when, I guess, like, you're voting for a politician, if you, obviously in the US or otherwise, having access to the information of like what their stance on crypto is and what their, I guess, kind of like holdings are. And I mean, this won't show you their holdings, but that is obviously important as well. But having kind of like their policy stance on crypto is incredibly important, especially in a post-Tornado Cash sanctions world where we're basically on the world stage of policy now, of regulation. And as I've said plenty of times before, this regulation is going to keep stepping up as time goes on, and we need to educate our politicians, we need to educate our representatives about crypto and make sure that they don't overregulate it, they don't come down on us really hard with regulations, because as much as I think that they're not going to long-term work anyway because we're building actual decentralized infrastructure, it's still going to hamper adoption, it's still going to punish people that are doing nothing wrong, so we definitely don't want to go down that path if we can avoid it. So I thought this was just a really cool thing that Coinbase has done here. I hope they do it in other countries as well, not just the US, but it'll give you a glance of what, I guess, like crypto policy or positions each representative has in the US and also where they live. So obviously each congressperson where they live and each representative of where they live there. So you can go check out Brian Armstrong's tweet thread for more details on that there. Yeah, the tweet thread's actually quite short, but as Ryan said here, actually, I like this energy Coinbase. I do really like this energy from Coinbase lately. I know, as I've said before, they get a lot of shit for, a lot of the things that in the past that they have done that weren't exactly great, but they've really stepped up their game, I think, lately, especially when it comes to things like client diversity. Remember, they were a really big player in getting that client diversity fixed on the consensus layer, because they were using over 90% Prism. Well, now I think they're only using 40 or 50% Prism, which was a huge improvement. And same with Kraken. I should give credit to Kraken there as well. They did a really great job. But yeah, Coinbase is just really stepping up. They're doing a lot of stuff within their Coinbase mobile wallet app for DeFi, which I think is really, really cool. And they just seem to be on the right side of crypto history here. So kudos to them for that. I hope it continues into the future. But I think on that note, that's going to be it. So I guess welcome to the post-merge world, guys. Welcome to the post-merge Daily Gwei world. All the refuels are going to be in a post-merge world from now on. There's not much else I can say that hasn't been said already. But yeah, I'm obviously going to be super excited to keep covering Ethereum as time goes on. We've got all those other upgrades to look forward to. So as usual, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel. And also you can subscribe to the podcast as well, because I do this in podcast format for those of you who don't know. And you can give that video a thumbs up on YouTube as well. It really helps. Subscribe to the newsletter, of course. Join the Discord channel because a lot of great conversations going on in there. But that's it. I will catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.